astrology chart, your early upbringing and your babyhood, represented by the sun and the moon in the third house of siblings, describes foundations for creating relationship. If a mother has been erratic, absent, not trustworthy for a baby, for a child, that person does not see the world as a secure place. That person does not feel loved, does not attach because they weren't attached, because the mother couldn't attach.
Because essentially what attachment is about is the capacity to tolerate and engage in states of intimacy, very close emotional connection with another human being.
Humans are born the most dependent and helpless of all the mammals. And we have this long period of dependency on the care of others. Attachment is the system that evolved to deal with this problem. The ability and the predisposition to form a relationship with a caring adult is what guarantees our survival as humans.
It used to be thought that because the child did not have language in the first year, it didn't have a mind, it didn't have a state of consciousness. This has been totally transformed now as we understand more and more the survival functions of the right brain. The right brain, again, dominant, if the left is dominant for linguistic behavior and language, the right is dominant for survival functions, etc. So nature has it that these survival functions are literally going to be impacted and that they are going to be imprinted into the brain in the early attachment relationship.
The current understanding of genetic influence is that genes always interact with environment. Genes just are chemicals that have to do with metabolizing of other chemicals. Genes don't directly cause behavioral outcomes. Genes always function in a very complex array of other genes and a whole history of experiences. The absolutely most exciting finding is that early nurturance alters the expression of genes, and most particularly genes that have to do with dealing with stress, the stress reactivity system.
What happens in good attachment is that the caregiver, the caregivers, and the infant relate back and forth. They regulate each other, they learn from each other, and the child begins to learn how to develop, to regulate him or herself.
We study face-to-face communication between the mother and the baby at 4 months. We put one camera on the mother's face and one camera on the baby's face. And then we watch it in split screen. And when we do that, we can see how each one reacts to the other one moment by moment. And we do that because we think that face-to-face communication between mothers and babies is the foundation of emotional development and intimacy actually throughout the lifespan. Now, when you enter development at 4 months, you're not at the very beginning. Many things have already happened.
We know that pregnancy is a very vulnerable time for women. Oftentimes it's when they're most likely in their life to be abused, to be cheated on by their partner. So this vulnerability in this really critical time can have lifelong, lasting impacts, not just on that woman, but on the child that she's carrying.
People can't believe it, but babies remember all kinds of things from in the womb and when they're newborn and when they're infants, because it's probably the time they're the most receptive to learning.
Just as birth can be hard and challenging for women, it can also be hard and challenging for babies, something that they're innately built to do, just like women. But we don't really pay attention to that. You know, when the baby is first born even, why are we all screaming, push, push, yay, ah! You know, I mean, really, we don't need to be doing that. You know, if we just can kind of quiet the room down and just let the baby kind of adjust and, you know, figure out where they are, where they've come from, where they are going to be.
I had a friend who was an OBGYN who went to Samoa to work for the government, and he told me the story of being an obstetrician on Samoa, He said the American women come in to have labor, and they have already decided it's going to be long, it's hard, and that's the way they gave birth. He said the Samoan women would come in 20 minutes they picked up their baby and left. I mean, it was like such a different way of looking at birth. And I think sometimes when I watch movies, it's always portrayed as some big emergency, you know. Get the hot water, even in Gone with the Wind, you know, it was an emergency. So we have a tendency to put crisis or emergency on birth, where the Samoan women, it's 20 minutes.
People don't remember their births, I mean, cognitively, because the hippocampus, you know, the seat of the memory, it's not online at birth, but we do remember implicitly. And we're often working with those preverbal phenomena that, as Beatrice Beebe says, are stored in an infant's action sequences. And those action sequences, as she says, they're a trajectory for future development. The trajectory can be changed, but it's set early on.
Babies are amazingly able to notice every little shift in the mother's orientation and gaze and facial expression and tone of voice. And they are so tuned in. And usually, ordinarily, doesn't take training. Intuitively, parents are similarly tuned in. But what's amazing to watch, what you don't quite realize, is the baby's not missing anything.
Early on in the first year, the capacity to learn how to cope with stress, to learn how to cope with fear, is being shaped by the mother-infant relationship. I mean, the mother literally is helping the baby learn how to set the set points of the hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is the stress-regulating axis. And the mother is helping the baby learn how to regulate fear states.
So one very typical problem that mothers might come for therapy with is they might say, my baby doesn't look at me, my baby's not interested in me, my baby doesn't love me, because the baby's looking away a lot. And when you film the interaction, you might find, very often you would find, that the mother is not tolerating the moments when the baby looks away. Because every baby looks away at times, because his arousal gets high. Looking at another person is very arousing, right? It's exciting, it's arousing, and eventually you're gonna look away. As soon as you look away, you regulate your arousal down, you're comfortable, you look back. That's how the babies do it.
And arousal essentially is, if you will, emotional energy, the intensity of the emotional energy. She's regulating the sympathetic nervous system, which is energy expending, like in fight, flight, or in high joy. Or she's also regulating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is energy conserving, let's say when she's soothing and calming. So what we have here are, if you will, energetic transmissions that reflect the internal homeostatic mechanisms of the body as it's going through arousal levels.
1, 2, 3. How could anybody love someone so damaged? Baby, here we go again. This is just a fraction of what lies ahead.